Hey, what's up everyone? This is MASTERIA, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a confession-style bass line. More specifically, I'm going to show you how me and fellow producer AceMyth made the track Do It, which was recently released on Chami's Confession label, and has been getting some great DJ support from Chami, Tiesto, Zed's Dead, Dr. Fresh, Sid, Morgan Page, and a bunch of other DJs. But in this tutorial, I want to show you the different layers of the bass line, kind of how we put it together. But not only that, we also want to give you the samples and presets, give those away to you for free. So head down into the description and check out that link below to grab those for free. But other than that, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to ZenWorld for letting me put this together for you guys. I really hope it's helpful. But if you have any questions or anything like that, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. But other than that, let's get into it. Alright guys, so here we are in Ableton. This is the project file for Do It. I'm just going to play the build and a little bit of the drop so you guys can get a feel for what it sounds like. And as I do that, I'll be opening up some of these groups. There's a lot of stuff frozen here just to save CPU. But after we play through it, I'm going to show you how I made some of these basses. So let's go. Cool. So that's basically what it sounds like. And this was a really fun one to produce. AceSmith, who I collaborated with this on, had the initial idea for the track, and I really like this. He had this second section kind of mostly hashed out already, and I really like that. But I thought I'd change up the first section he had. So here's how I did that. On the one, you hear it's just like big growl, like boosh, and then these other two layers come in. So let's play that. So here's that is, and basically what this is just a resampled growl I made. What I do for sound design a lot of times for these one shots is I'll just have a straight up sound design session where I'll just add the craziest processing I can to Serum, just stuff that shouldn't even work. You know, like 20 OTTs or like, 10 saturators in a row and just all this crazy stuff. And you get a lot of these like really unexpected results, which are pretty cool. And here's that whole folder of what those sound like. Here's some ones I made with my voice. All just crazy stuff, really processed and distorted, and it sounds good. And what that allows me to do is, once I have all these sounds already, I can just drag and drop these processed samples that no one else in the world has into my projects, and it sounds really cool. So that's what I did here. I added some processing just to make it bigger. Let's see. So here's the main layer. So this is this wide process layer. I'll do this on a lot of sounds sometimes just to make them bigger, is add another layer and just process it like crazy and add a haas effect at the end like this. Here's what I did here. Where is the delay? Yeah, there it is. So just a bunch of other processing just to make sure that it's different from that main sound, that sound's in the middle. Because if you try and layer a sound with itself just wide, it'll phase and it won't sound cool. So what's better to do is layer two different sounds. And when you're working with the same source signal, you can just process it like crazy just to get a different result. So that's what I did here. Together it sounds pretty cool. Then I had just another one of those shots I made, just kind of reversing into that next section. And then we also just have a little bit of low end from just to make sure it's consistent with the rest of the song, because that's a big thing I hear sometimes in a lot of tracks that people make in this style, is they'll have some cool sounds, but the low end will be so inconsistent that things don't sound cohesive. So it's a good idea to do what you can to make sure like the sub levels around like 100 and below stay somewhat consistent during the different sections and phrases of your song. So that's that first shot right there. And then next is this little motif that really carries the first section of the song. So basically it's just a saw bass. Let's drag this in here. Nothing crazy going on. Here's the other layer. Same thing I just talked about. Just processing another layer, then making it wide can really, it helps add width to these sounds in a cool way. So that's how I did it on this one. Erosion, this is one I just love to add to almost any sound. It should add some really cool white noise. Sometimes I'll do it in subtle ways. Let's see if we can hear the difference here. Yeah, you can hear that just high end that's kind of brought out. And once again, this is another thing to make it different from the sound it's being layered with. Yep. Decapitator is a huge one. I've been loving this plugin lately. Doing all sorts. You see, I'm just driving it like crazy. This is a really cool plugin if you guys haven't checked it out. Super simple to use and it always sounds great. So those are the two layers here. And then I believe add some, just white noise just to kind of help fill it out. You hear that subtle difference the white noise makes? I heard this trick from Kashmir a while ago, but basically anytime a sound is like sounding a little too empty or not full enough, he'll just try and layer some white noise. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just a quick way to help fill out your sounds in a way that's pretty subtle and listeners don't always recognize. That's why on a lot of my drops, the first hit, there's white noise, usually super wide, and it's subtle, but it's like, I don't know, it brings the energy. It reminds me of like when you're playing a show or a festival and when the drop comes, they get blasted with the CO2, you know, those are always the craziest parts. So that's my thoughts on that. And then, this is what it sounds like without this lead that I'm going to go over in a second. So this is that synth. BSOD square, and then just a little default saw wave over here. Nothing too crazy on the processing. And then I believe I had another, so this is filling out the high end a little bit. So here are the two patches next to each other. So you can see I kept the saw at -2 octaves, but I brought this up 4 octaves from -2 to +2. You can hear it really helps fill out that sound. So that's why I did that. Process them. We'll control this, tame this one with a little bit of EQ, a little bit of chorus just to give it some width. Because I like my higher end layers to be wider. I think of the mix starting from the low frequencies at the bottom to the high frequencies, kind of like an upside down triangle. Like you want your low frequencies set in mono, but as you go up, some of those higher frequencies can be spread, and that's how you get a really wide mix. So that's my thinking there. And then let's see. This is something that I think is super underutilized. And a lot of the tracks I hear is just pitch bends. Pitch bends can seem so subtle, but they make such a big difference in just making your sounds and the way they flow together more interesting. Like it makes it more dynamic, more interesting. It can help kind of sweep the listener along. So here, I'll play this without the pitch bends and then with them, so you can hear what I'm talking about. You know, it kind of sounds the same, but it's just way less interesting. You know what I mean? So that's about it for this section. There's a lot of other stuff going on in this song, as you can hear. And AceSmith and I are releasing a full tutorial track breakdown on this one. But this one, in this video, I just wanted to mainly focus on the basses for you guys, because that's, especially for confession songs, the music they release, it's very bassline focused. So that's what I want to talk about in this tutorial. But if you guys want to go deeper into this specific track, definitely check out my channel, and I'll be posting that soon. So here's this B section, and this is what it sounds like. And I wish I could go a little bit deeper into this bass, but this is the one that AceSmith made. He made this in Reactor. And then on top of that, we have this little synth. It was a flute sample we layered on top. Bum, 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 bum. So this is another one that's frozen. Let's see if I can unfreeze this. So some compression, some multi-band compression, a little bit of reverb, Fletcher-Munson curve. I believe we added this just because there was a little bit of harshness right there that we noticed. A little more taming this sound. It was a pretty crazy sound. I think there were just some peaks in these areas. Like, yeah, you can see that peak. And what you can do by taming these peaks is you open up a little bit more room in your mix, because when these peaks hit your limiter, even if you're not limiting on the master, those are what's going to prevent you from getting your song loud. These peaks, you know, and peaks aren't always bad. A lot of times they're a good thing. But if you have peaks that you don't necessarily need there, I would try and tame them. And one of the best ways to do it is to just look at your sound with an EQ. Like, it's very clear that those peaks are the loudest part of the song. So you can experiment with EQing those down a little bit. Like FabFilter Pro Q3 has dynamic EQ, which is an even better way to do this. But in this case, we just dipped it. And then as soon as you do that, just verify that you didn't lose any important stuff. Because sometimes I've EQ'd those peaks out and it kind of changes the character of the sound in a bad way. So just make sure you don't negatively affect the sound in any way. And yeah, it can be very helpful. So here's what these two sound like together. And then in between, there's just more of these shots that I was talking to you guys about. This one's pretty subtle, but it helps fill out those vocals that are going on top of it. And once again, I have just more of these quick low end, just a little sine wave to make sure that low end remains consistent and just carries it along. And then I have a few more that I made in this little thing here. Let's see, solo these. You know, just more of these little one shots. This one I may have not made, a little cashmere, you know, and just, yeah, Fletcher-Munson curve. That's like EQ, where it's related to how we hear music and how we perceive it in our ears. So just taming some crazy stuff there, and then just more growls. And that's about it. I'll just play the bass section so you guys get a full picture of what it sounds like. And yeah, and that's about it, guys. I mean, there's another little trick I did here. So what this is just a little one shot I did where I sampled these shots and just pitched it down. So here's what it sounded like. And I just pitched it down. And then just layered it with another wide one, processed it a bunch, tamed it with some EQ, added a Haas effect, added just some more random processing stuff just to make it a little bit different. And that's what those sound like. So it's another thing I do a lot of, just taking the sounds that are already in your mix, resampling them in audio, and just pitching them down, up, playing with this. You know, these are cool. I like Complex Pro a lot, all the different warp modes, and just experiment with getting unexpected stuff. Like, a lot of what labels are looking for these days are sounds that don't really sound like anything else. You know, weirder and weirder stuff just because there's so much music. So that's what I would recommend you guys do. Just experiment more. Try more stuff you think won't work and just see what happens. Record more of your audio. And yeah. Alright guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something from this. If you haven't yet, head down in the description and there's a link there to download the samples and presets we use in the bassline for free. And if you want to keep up with me, I'm on social media at AceMysteria. I have a big EP coming out with one of my favorite labels soon, so definitely stay tuned for that. And just another huge thank you to Zen World for letting me put this together for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'll talk to you soon.